I'm Ken Jenkins, and today we're going to talk about shared services.
So, what are shared services?
Shared services is exactly what it sounds like.
It's a situation in which two parties both share some resource or service, and they gain a benefit simply from the act of sharing.
So think about this. Two small children from two different families sharing a box of crayons.
It's true. One box of crayons purchased allows both children to color as much as they want.
Think about all of the positive things that can happen as a result.
But how does this relate to government?
Shared services on a government level is where we can provide the services our constituencies are looking for, but at the greatest savings. For example, there may be a piece of expensive equipment that one municipality has where we have an opportunity to share its use with other municipalities.
There's examples of shared services like Nassau County, which plans to partner with one of its largest cities, combining and consolidating their sewer districts, saving $128 million.
The Village of Mount Kisco has the good fortune to have a partnership with the Westchester County Police. The Westchester County Police are the police force for the Village of Mount Kisco.
And in the end result, the Village of Mount Kisco gets a very standardized coverage of police force, more regulated, and I think we provide a very professional police department to patrol the Village of Mount Kisco.
So now you can see all the ways that we can benefit from sharing services.
Saving money, providing services at all levels of government, and ensuring that the quality of life in Westchester remains.
We're asking you, the public, to let us know what shared services you'd like to see.
What opportunities do you think there are for shared services? Ways in which the county, our villages, our towns, our school district can leverage services in order to find savings for everyone who lives in Westchester.
Well, good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and as you can see from the video, we are in the process of trying to assess exactly how we as a county government, working alongside village, town, and city governments and school districts, can find common ground and sharing services that would be both an efficient delivery of service and also a less expensive sharing of services. I think we all understand that the only thing that's constant in this world is change. We're seeing change in every form of our lives, the way we communicate with each other, things that we couldn't envision. An internet followed by social network comes along and changes the way we operate. People who have bricks and mortar stores in the downtowns of our communities find that people now buy online as well as foot traffic on the main street, and we have to adjust to that. Media has to change. The willingness to read certain kinds of publications or to watch certain kinds of news gathering organizations has changed over the years, and so we have to change to adjust to those things. And that's true in government as well. And many times government is the hardest area of society to change because we're structured around things that are law rather than things that are practical actions that you take in order to capitalize on what's happening in the society at the moment. So we have a number of people here who are going to talk a little bit about the issue of shared services and why they're so important and where they are practical in our workings. And I'll have the opportunity to introduce each of them as they come up to speak. But I think it has to be understood that under this administration, we see ourselves in the county government as a brother or sister government to villages, towns, and cities, not as a superior government. We are all in this together. We're tasked by state and federal governments to doing certain kinds of things, and then the people who live in Westchester County expect to see certain kind of services. And the question is, how do we deliver those services, not which particular jurisdiction does it, and the concept that we're a corporate entity and we're only worried about our corporate entity and we don't worry about the other corporate entity is not in keeping with what our residents expect. They expect us to find ways to work together, do the things we're supposed to do, and do it efficiently. We have established 2 meetings coming up this week on shared services. These are public hearings, and this administration is very committed into opening the doors and having people come in and express their opinions. If there's one person that shows up, if there's 100 people that show up, we want to make sure that the people who live in this county have an opportunity to talk about this. The 2 hearings that are coming up are both scheduled for this Thursday, June the 14th. One is at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock at the Yonkers Riverfront Library, right off of Larkin Plaza. and then in the evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Mount Kisco Library, right in the heart of Mount Kisco, next to Village Hall and in the heart of the community. Very important to understand that these two meetings are part of a process that's been laid out by state government. Governor Andrew Cuomo and the state legislature has created a shared services system and program whereby we can lay out a game plan, and it has to have certain public input and certain action and activity by the Board of Legislators, and then once adopted, we'll receive some state funding to help us implement. So these two are two of the meetings along those lines. We'll have an additional meeting later on when our plan is put together. There was a plan submitted a year ago. We're revisiting that plan, and we've contracted with some very talented folks in the Rockefeller Institute that will help us reshape our plan in a way that we think will be most effective. The opportunity to tap into some of the $225 million that the state has set aside is also a thought, because we have our fiscal issues, and we want to make sure that if we can achieve money to accept and adjust to this change, but at the same time do it in a way that's cost efficient for our taxpayers. Other counties have submitted plans that we think are more robust. In our size of county, Erie County, Nassau County, Suffolk County are significant sized counties, and they show some significant savings from this type of shared service approach. We think that we can do that as well. You saw the example in the video about Nassau County and a consolidation of sewer districts out there. Every place is structured differently. In a few minutes, you're going to hear about how our public safety operation has been structured in a way to cooperate with the village town of Mount Kisco, and as it exists in a couple of other of our communities. And so you'll hear Chief Chris Calabrese from our Department of Public Safety address that, and also who you saw on TV, Mayor Gina Pacinic, who's going to talk about that from Mount Kisco's standpoint. But there are a host of different areas that we could deal with, and I think that's really what the challenge is here now, is to be creative, to be inclusive in our thinking, to look at every area of responsibility that a village, town, city government has, a school district has, and the county government has, and be willing to go where we haven't gone before, which is to determine where those cooperations may work over the dotted line of this government versus that government. With that thought in mind, I'd like to ask Patty Dwyer to join us at the podium. She's the Executive Director of the New York State City-County Management Association. She is a long-term experienced municipal administrator, Village of Pleasantville and elsewhere. And now that she's retired, we have her busier than ever being involved in these things. Patty, thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Hello, everybody. My name is Patricia Dwyer. I have career experience as a municipal manager, worked for over 19 years for the Village of Pleasantville and almost 6 for the Village of Mount Kisco. So I am very familiar with Westchester County and its fragmented intergovernmental system. I also taught at Pace University for many years as an adjunct in intermunicipal governmental relations and other courses. So I'd like to just say a couple of things while I have the opportunity to. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here and to be part of this exciting project. I am going to be consulting with the Rockefeller Institute on this project, so I think I can bring a perspective with the boots on the ground, so to speak, being involved with my municipal colleagues for many years here in Westchester. And I can say unequivocally that some of the best management decisions that were made in collaboration with the cooperation of other municipalities. For example, when I was in Pleasantville, we had some joint ventures created with the town of Mount Pleasant and with the town of Newcastle that saved an extraordinary amount of money for those municipalities, but also provided services in a way that were efficient. So oftentimes things are not necessarily economical and efficient at the same time. Sometimes those terms don't necessarily coincide. But in the instance with shared services, we do see lots of efficiencies that bring greater economies. We were able to work on a joint library system with the town of Mount Pleasant. With the town of Newcastle, we created a joint water filtration agreement and plant. With the county, we got involved with IT services as well as GIS. And I also had been involved with the New York State Municipal Insurance Reciprocal. We provided insurance for over 850 municipalities in order to consolidate our obligations to provide general liability and other types of insurance. So in the intergovernmental system, as fragmented as it is, I think we all recognize there's a considerable amount of interdependence and we cannot survive without each other. So that being said, shared services is not just best practices, it is the next practice. So we need to elevate to that level and we need to engage people. So without further ado, I'll be happy to answer any questions afterward. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask our next two speakers to come up together because they will give two sides of a coin of a very important collaboration that is going on between the village town of Mount Kisco and the county's Department of Public Safety. So Mayor Gina Prusinic is with us here today. She has one extra month on the job as mayor than I have as county executive, so I treat her as the more experienced partner. Please come up, Gina. And our Chief Chris Calabrese from the Department of Public Safety as well. And this partnership, from both sides of the partnership, is what they're going to talk about. Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Gina Piconich, and I have the honor of being the mayor of Mount Kisco. So just really briefly, Mount Kisco is a very big little village. We have under 11,000 in population, squeezed into 3.2 square miles. We deliver an extensive amount of services, things like water, sewer, garbage collection, which is unusual for northern Westchester. It's challenging to be able to extend out all these services to our residents and keep our taxes at a rate that's reasonable. So Mount Kisco is very forward-thinking in partnering with the county. And so, as I said in the video, Mount Kisco's police force is the Westchester County Police. And how the village benefits is we have an extremely professional police force. We have access to resources that would have been harder to get a hold of on a moment's notice. Things like K-9 units. We have the aerial helicopters that can come in. And so the Westchester County Police is on site with us every day. If we have any needs, we just reach out and we communicate together on a regular basis. And it's working very well. I think the really important thing to keep in mind is every year we save about $500,000 for the taxpayers of Mount Kisco. So that's money we either don't have to levy or we can use for other services. Very good.
Chief Chris Calabrese, Westchester County Police. I've been in law enforcement in Westchester County for 40 plus years, yes, 40 plus years. And I've been with the County of Westchester since 1984. Before that, it was 6 years with the City of Peekskill. This opportunity that we have with consolidation and shared services is extremely beneficial for everyone that's involved. We now have shared services with our police services, contracted policing, which I think is a wave of the future, with the town of Cortland and also with Mount Kisco. Our latest endeavor with Mount Kisco, in addition to saving them $500,000 every year, this past year their tax levy was the lowest that it has been, the percentage, in 15 years. So with that, we bring a higher level of professional police services than they had prior, and that's because we have a larger department. We have a really, really well-trained department with a lot of resources. And with those resources are now part of Mount Kisco's resources because we are one. We've increased their actual patrol capacity by taking the person that they had on a desk who was dispatching. We do the dispatching centrally. We took him and put him out on the street. So right away, you have a huge increase in the patrol presence that's going to be out there for Mount Kisco. We ensure now that there is a supervisor working every single tour, so there is a boss that is there. When the decisions need to be made, there's someone there who is qualified and trained to make those decisions. And we've done so much outreach in Mount Kisco to the community in a very short period of time. We had a couple of events, one being Cops and Cones, which was an event where we had all the community businesses get together, and we invited the community in, specifically targeting the children to come in and have positive experiences and connections with the police. Very successful. Most recently, we've had Coffee with a Cop in Mount Kisco, where we set up in a coffee shop, and we just said hello in just a way of saying hello, shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye, and asking them, how are things going? How are we doing? And we got very positive responses from everyone there. And we've also got some information that, okay, we can work on that. We can make that better. And that's the way it's been working. And one of our outreaches was also to Neighbors Link. Neighbors Link is a grassroots organization that is in Mount Kisco, mostly for the immigrant community. And they are, at least initially, very suspect of the police, and it's hard to have good communication with them. We've broken down those barriers. We've done numerous outreaches with them, and it's just all been positive. So, you know, there's benefits all around for contract policing, shared services, and I think Mount Kisco is a great example.
Good. Thank you both. So the example that the chief and the mayor have identified, is one of what could be any number of different shared services. Our challenge is to identify where those connections exist, where they can be productive, and they could be on any range of activities. Westchester County has a Department of Public Safety. We have a DPW department. We have a Parks and Recreation department, and any of the holdings or the activities that we have involve county personnel being in all different corners of the county. So the question will be whether or not we can find a partnership in any one of these different services. Also, what we want to encourage is intermunicipal cooperation that may not necessarily involve the county government per se, but there are examples of 2 and 3 municipalities joining for emergency services already. We have examples of 1 and 2 communities joining together for fire services, for a host of different, smaller level things, cable television services, in some cases sanitation. But I think it's clear the wave of the future is in cooperation and in working together. It's very important for me to project that we know that the county government has to be a partner with local governments and approach that relationship as peers, as friends, and as people that are together trying to work something out, not as if we're going to impose something on them. This is a home rule state. Villages, cities, and towns, and certainly school districts have individual authority to do certain things that the county cannot override. But our residents are expecting us to do more than just accept the status quo. And the example that the chief and the mayor talked about in the case of Mount Kisco, the examples that exist elsewhere in Cortland and in some other places, are the wave of the future. And so now the question is, are we going to embrace the future? And that is what our public hearings on Thursday night hopefully will advance, Thursday day and night, 3 o'clock in Yonkers, 7 o'clock in Mount Kisco, is the opportunity for people to come, listen, and comment, and then give us input on these different things. So with that thought in mind, we'll open it up to any questions from the press. We want to turn the lights on, since I really can't see who's out there, to recognize them. And that will help a little bit. And if you have any questions for myself or any of the other speakers, we're happy to do it. We can do it as a group. And then obviously you always have the opportunity to talk with people individually after this is over. So, Andrew?
Just real quickly, is there any specific area in Westchester County, any town or city that you think would specifically benefit from exploring shared services?
Well, I think generically it's intelligent to say that the smaller the municipality is, the more they have to have certain fixed costs to provide a service, whether it's speaking of police, or sanitation, recreation, anything. There's a certain amount of fixed costs no matter how large or small you are as a municipality. The smaller you are as a municipality, the more those fixed costs represent a percentage of what your local taxpayers have to pay. So I think it's in those communities that you're likely to have the first round of willingness to look at cooperative efforts. We have any number of communities that are 10,000 people or less, villages all across the board. I have in my past legislative career represented Village of Larchmont, 6,000 people, Village of Rybrook, 10,000 people, Town of Newcastle, North Castle, 11,000 people, Pound Ridge is in the under 10,000 people. And so those communities, I think, are probably the first line of discussion. But since it's a local decision to decide to do these things, what we have to do as a county government is to sort of lay out the game plan, lay out the menu, if you will, and put together some things so that a local official, as Gina is in her village and others are across the county, that they can make a decision at budget time. If we go this route, we will pay X to get this, and the alternative is Y, and then make a decision based on the economics and then also the ability to deliver it. And every one of these services are very different. And as Chief Calabrese pointed out, there's certain services the county police provide that most local police don't provide. The city of Yonkers is a big jurisdiction, and they have certain of these things built into the sauce. But the smaller communities don't have those things built in, and that becomes part of the decision process. So I would say the cutting edge of this will begin with the smaller communities of Westchester County, most likely, and then determine where it branches from there. Other questions? John?
Yeah, could you explain whether the county will be proactive in finding ways which various towns and cities could combine, or is the cities and towns going to have to come to you?
No, we're being proactive. I mean, that's why we've set up this process, as you see. We have a report that has to be filed, I think our deadline date is October 1st, if I'm not mistaken, and we have a deadline, I think, of August 1st to submit a plan to the Board of Legislators. Am I correct? Is that right? By the way, just for the record, we're joined by our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, who looked really good in the video, and our Director of Operations, Joan McDonald, is with us, and John Nona, our County Attorney, is here. Of course, Catherine Chaffee is with us, our Director of Communications, Andrew Ferris, our Chief of Staff. Other key members of our team are here as well, and our deputy, a very important person to mention, our Deputy Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman, has been a point person on all these shared services issues, and so that's important to know the players in the game. So I think, John, we're being proactive to try to engender the dialogue, to try to point out the examples where they exist, as the one we just talked about in Mount Kisco. There are others that are out there, and there are some that are prospective. And where we see the opportunity for local government to cooperate, and this is where Patty's expertise comes in within the association that she's in, she understands intrinsically the structure of budgeting and service delivery at the village level. And we have 20 villages in the county of various sizes. And so I think having that kind of expertise on this broader team will help us match up. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be the decision of each municipality if they want to join in or not. And they, I'm sure, the thinking that Gina mentioned from Mount Kisco, it has to work on their level of economics and delivery of service so that it makes sense. I think there are those connections. We're not going to force feed them, but I think we're going to do everything we can to make them possible, and that's what the purpose of our plan is.
So you are going to make suggestions?
Yeah, make suggestions, I think we'll work together to try to find what we think is the best way. The important thing, the headset, is what I said earlier. We are not approaching this as us and you. We're approaching this as we. And in fact, as you know, we've tried many, many things with that mindset, the we of discussion, the we of decision making. So we're sitting down with our fellow local governments. We're a local government too. And we sit down and we try to say, okay, here's what we do, here's what you do, here's what we could do, here's what it would cost. So it's a we. And I think it's a differentiation. I mean, you've had in other cycles, folks in the county say we're the bigger government, we're the regional government, we should drive the train, and you should do what we're not approaching it that way. And we think that we can make, common purpose by being cooperative in that way. So, any other questions? I know that we've exhausted the topic, but the meeting's coming up on Thursday. You've seen it on the graphic already. 3 o'clock, Yonkers Riverfront Library. 7 o'clock, Mount Kisco Library. Gina's kind enough to have us, and she'll tell you the best restaurants in town. Get an early dinner, spend your money in Mount Kisco, and then come to the hearing. And then after that, we will meet as an executive team. We'll interact, Patty, Westchester Municipal Officials Associations. We'll continue to have dialogue. We'll help put this plan together. We hope it'll be a sensible plan, and give it to the Board of Legislators for their review, their discussion, their decision, and then ultimately to the state. And then hopefully we'll see that it's an intelligent plan. It has savings, and we hope that the state will help invest some of their money in our implementation of the plan. So, if there are no other questions with that, I'll stop. Feel free to interview any of our colleagues here one-on-one. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for your time.